Jamie picked up this little secretary yesterday, and it's really cool. It's all solid wood, but it's got some issues. This is broken here. The door is actually warped. It won't close, and I don't think I can fix it.
Are you complaining about my find? It was $75. I loaded it in the Suburban all by myself. I just bear hugged it and put it in because you were busy.
You did so good. All right, so hiding out inside of here are a couple of other problems. This needs a pin so that hinge works. And then this here has been split off. It was a door that opened, but where it broke right here with the screws, I'm thinking I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off because I could probably glue it, but it's never going to be strong again. That's just not going to work out. All right, so you can see where that's broken right there. I just unscrewed it, and someone used screws that were too large that came all the way through and just split the wood. All right, I'm just going to use this brass nail to make my own pin.
I've got these little vintage white porcelain knobs. And somebody gave them to us for free with a bag. Look at the back. Like, I think they're from the 70s. But I think if you just take off that one and then put these two, that'd be all right. You can see where we've removed this door. You can see the natural wood tones. I'm not painting the inside of this because I'm gonna clean it all up. So I'm just gonna use my little edge brush from Turquoise Iris, a little bit dark and decrepit, and come in here and touch up this spot right here. That way it's not less noticeable that we pulled that door off. Dark and Decrepit has a built-in sealer, so after I'm done with this, I don't need to seal it. It's all done. Zeb's made a little bit of a bigger area for me to fix by pulling out a shelf. It actually gives you a more usable space. So I'm just gonna come in with Dark and Decrepit.
That Dark and Decrepit matches that almost perfectly.
I think those white knobs are cute. So I'm using an old White Swan can, and I'm mixing in 1 part Old 57 and 1 part White Swan. Old 57 is a really pretty, old school, turquoisey color, but I want something just a little bit softer.
All right, we are spraying this base coat on today. So I'm gonna put 15 ounces of DIY paint in this, and I'm just watching the side. There's a measurement on the side over here so I can see right when I'm at 15. So basically 3 parts paint to 1 part water, and then I'm just gonna add a little bit of extra water than I normally would to a traditional chalk paint because the DIY paint is so thick. And we have a very in-depth tutorial on spraying DIY paint and chalk paints and milk paints. So I will drop those links for you if you're interested in spraying paint. It's really efficient and you get a nice clean, almost factory-like finish. So on this piece, we're gonna paint the inside of these cubbies in a white color. We're using White Swan and DIY paint. Then we're gonna paint the exteriors. So I'm gonna leave the doors on while I paint the outside. That way I don't mess with my two-tone finish. I've got my respirator on because while the DIY paint is all natural, you don't want to breathe it into your lungs. It wasn't intended for that. So you use a respirator when you're spraying paint. DIY paint dries a flat sheen, so it's not critical that I paint in nice, neat, even lines. I just need to get coverage. It's real subtle, but you can kind of see right here, there's a little bit of yellowing and things up around in here, and it's just on these sides. And down here, you can see it a little better in the shading down there. I'm using Zinsser Bullseye Shellac, and this is gonna cover it up. I'm gonna do 2 coats on here, let them dry about 20 minutes in between, and then I'll repaint that.
This is just DIY paint that I'm adding to water, and I'm thinning it out to like a very milky consistency. Not an exact ratio, maybe 10:1. Just make sure it's all dissolved. All right, so be careful when you're doing this. You're gonna come across and apparently drip everywhere. Just smooth this out.
That's really toning back that old 57. Even mixing it with 50% white swan, it was still pretty bright.
Yeah, I saw a lot of old, like when I was looking for paint finishes, I saw a lot of old time-worn finishes that had almost just like this white hue over it, not like a solid white coat, and that's kind of what I'm trying to recreate here. So I'm just chasing drips here. It is very watery. I don't necessarily want this to have big drips coming down it. So you kind of just have to work the piece.
Well, it gives it a real subtle blended look.
And I'm not putting hardly any pressure, because if I was to put tons of pressure, it would reactivate that base coat and pull that paint off, which is not the desired effect.
Doesn't look like it takes much.
I probably mixed up way more paint than I'm gonna need.
Well, luckily it's mostly water.
It's mostly water, yes. This is a great thing to do when you just have like a little bit of paint left in your brush, you know? If you don't catch every drip, it's okay, especially on the legs.
Yeah, once they're dry, I think it's gonna be such a light shade that it won't be noticeable. Okay, so this is one coat of the white wash, and it's mostly dry. It's got a couple places where it still needs to dry out, but it's very subtle, just light hint of white, I don't know.
Essence of white swan.
It's the essence of white swan. Jamie wants another coat.
Hey.
A little more effect. It was
A little more essence.
It was too subtle. The essence was not strong enough.
I don't mind a few drippy doos, but a little goes a long way. I'm lightly distressing all of the details across the edge. We did get a little bit of a wet distress when we put the whitewash on in a few spots, and I'm just gonna go with it. We also have a slight bit of bleed through, but also that just adds to the patina. I went ahead and went with sandpaper because the wet distress was just peeling off the whitewash, and I don't want to do that. I just want to show some of the dark color underneath.
All right, so we've got the inside opened up here, and there's just a little bit of overspray on the inside. And Jamie's just gonna wipe that off. She's just got a disinfectant wipe that happened to be wet.
I didn't love the coppery brassness of the hardware, so I just painted it with the white swan and I wet distressed it and brought back the detail. Zeb's gonna put it back on, and then we'll clear wax it all when we wax the piece. So now that we've got it all done, we've decided to use clear wax because we had some bleed through situations happening, and I know if we use a liquid top coat, it's gonna be like huge splotchy. So clear wax, and then we'll buff it. Can I get a little dip there?
Yep. I'm using the Paint Pixie buff to buff the wax off of here. This has been sitting a couple hours. It's best to let it sit 24 hours, but we're gonna put another coat of wax on here, and then we'll buff that after 24 hours. This brush is really nice. It works really great on detail and getting down in the cracks and getting things really nice and smooth and evening your wax finish out.
My inspiration for this piece was a French country chateau that I found on Pinterest. I'll have Zeb show you the picture and drop the link to the photographer below. I really wanted to create like a really soft blue look with some white accents, and the house actually had a stained wood door, which is why we left the inside stained to kind of mimic that stained look that was there.
So the base coat was easy to spray on here, and then the white wash that we did with the white swan in the water mimics the look of white wax, but you can still seal it with a top coat rather than having to use a wax if you're wanting to go that route with your finish.
Also, it's a great use of the leftover white swan in the bottom. So if you buy Old 57 and white swan to make this mix, just take the leftover white swan in the bottom of your pint, add some water to that. You can get that white wax effect just using some whitewash with your leftover white swan. That's a lot of whites.
It is a lot of
white
whites.
wax, whitewash, white swan. Be sure to hit up JamiRayVintage.com for your paint products. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Jami Ray Vintage for more
DIY.